models in a more precise manner, because only if we know how climate in the Arctic changes will we be able to take precautions against climate change and to counter climate change here in Germany. And that also shows another fact. It's important to secure and share the results and the data of scientific expeditions. Data are the basis of scientific research, and it's so important we create a sustainable access to the scientific data. And we are planning to merge all our data pools and then to use the opportunities presented by having this data at our disposal and to generate added value for society as a whole. And that is why we are going to provide at least 10 million euros as an additional contribution to the evaluation of the MOSAiC expedition data at universities, research institutes, so that we will be able to generate the necessary knowledge for action as quickly as possible. And this process is going to be underway in a very short time. Dear ladies and gentlemen, with an expedition like the MOSAiC expedition, our objective is to preserve the world we have inherited for the future generations. We know we have to stop climate change. We can only achieve this goal together across disciplines and across nations. And I only want to take a look at the rising sea surfaces and the burning rainforests, and all these are challenges that we can only cope with together if we join forces for the sake of future generations and their lives. And I wish to emphasize that despite some political difficulties, we are determined to achieve this goal, and that is also reflected by the fact that over 20 nations were involved in this project, and we assumed more than half the cost, which means we assumed a leading role in this project, and the project has benefited from long-term German funding. And it's important we stress this fact that we want to remain the leading contributor to this project and these activities, and we want to live up to our global responsibility by supporting such projects. We know the Arctic is developing into a key region of global politics. Its ecological, economical, and geostrategic role is increasing continuously, and the Arctic region gets more and more passable to ships and vessels, and that is why we have to focus on this region increasingly, and that is why the pillars of German Arctic research have changed. We are committed to sustainable and environmentally compatible shipping and economic development regions, and we are committed to preserving the Arctic as an ecological habitat, and it shows that our national and international activities are committed precisely to these objectives. After the many months of enthusiasm and endeavors, it is very important for me to point out that we should be grateful to all the scientists involved in this project who undertook huge endeavors. But we're also say thank you to all the logistic people and the technicians and to everybody who rendered possible this outstanding expedition and made sure it could be turned into reality. And at this point, I wish to thank all the researchers and scientists at the Alfred-Wegener-Institut for managing and accompanying and supporting this expedition, and as a representative for all the crews on board of the vessel, I thank you, Mr. Wunderlich. Your commitment and your efforts and your seafaring skills, you made a major contribution to the success of this expedition, and it's thanks to you that we can welcome all participants here today in Bremerhaven back and healthy. And that is why I thank the researchers and those who showed courage to be part of this expeditions. We need all of you. We know this. And we stand by you, through our own involvement, and we're also in close contact with you. We need science to cope with the great challenges of our times, and my approach is that in these days we have to do everything we possibly can to preserve our planet and to make life on this planet as healthy and as worthy as possible. And thank you very much. Thank you for this assessment. We continue with the impressions from the expedition itself. Please, Mr. Rex. So, good morning. And first of all, thank you for the great reception here in Bremerhaven by the people, by the minister, and by everybody else who made and rendered this expedition possible in coronavirus times, and we've been impressed by this reception. And we thought, as a thank you, we would bring something back for you from the Arctic regions, for you and for the manager of the Alfred-Wegener-Institut, and we bring back a stone for you from the Arctic regions. Why there are stones in that regions is a very exciting topic we can discuss on another occasion. And I'm still overwhelmed. I spent 1 year and 9 months in the Arctic regions, and I'm not used to seeing so many faces, including faces with masks, and it appears a bit strange, but now, after a very exciting year, I am back and I'm very satisfied with the outcome of the expedition. Every participant of the Arctic has returned healthy. Nobody has lost any finger, but and we have also achieved our high objectives, which we were not sure whether we could achieve and accomplish them, but our concept has become reality. And we have faced huge challenges during the expedition with the ice pressure and the ice mountains, which appeared suddenly at a point where only a few minutes ago there was only water. So we also had to update our our measuring devices. We had to cope with the complete polar night without any light, facing polar bears, which are nice, very nice animals, but of course pose a risk for us. And then, very unexpectedly, amid all the other challenges, we were faced with the coronavirus pandemic, which brought the expedition close to being broken off, and only thanks to support by the German Research Ministry could the expedition be saved and maintained, and that is why we have returned here today after a successful expedition and not half a year ago after an unsuccessful expedition. And that shows the tremendous strength of the German research institutes and the research landscape. We broke several records during our expedition, and we redefined the Arctic as a region for future scientists. I can honestly say it has been an historic milestone for Arctic research, and we come back with a pool of data and samples that will change Arctic research for a long time. The Arctic region is a very complicated cosmos, and all the different factors and parameters are all interconnected, and we opened this clockwork and we looked at all the different elements down to the different screws of this Arctic system, and we didn't only have a rough look at the Arctic cosmos, but rather at the very smallest details of the Arctic system. And now we understand the entire clockwork better than ever before, and maybe we can rebuild this Arctic system on a computer model. And with all the data we have at our disposal now, we will be much in a much better position to do so. And in the past, we often had to make assumptions and we had to guess about how the clockwork actually worked. And now we have a much a better basis for doing so. And we, beside all the data and probes, we also bring back great impressions from the expedition that will last with us for all our lives in the complete darkness, when the world becomes reduced to the small sector of light, whereas the polar night extends for thousands of miles, and this endless region, then we see the Arctic mountains, and we can imagine the flat ice where there is no light. Then you have the impression you're not on Earth anymore, but you are on a different planet. And then in the summer, the ice starts melting, and we are in a perfectly different landscape, and it's the colors explode, and the black and white world of the winter time turns into a shining environment in many different colors, and the yellow and orange sun is on its course, and these are unforgettable moments in the ice, and that showed the beauty of the Arctic ice. But that beauty and that region is at risk. We were able to witness how the ice disappears, and in regions where there should be ice of a thickness of many meters, and even on the North Pole, the ice was gone. So you don't need devices, you just need your eyes to see that the Arctic ice is dying, and if we continue on our current path, the Arctic ice will be gone in a couple of centuries. And during Fridtjof Nansen's groundbreaking expeditions 100 years ago, the ice was twice as thick as it is now. So this reflects the warming of the Arctic during the winter time, where temperatures have risen by many degrees. The ice is disappearing, and if in a few decades we have an ice-free Arctic, this will have a major impact on the climate around the world, and you will be able to sail to the North Pole from Bremerhaven, where generations of discoverers and researchers have spent their time in ice. And the Arctic is also a unique ecosystem. We saw the micro and organisms in and underneath the ice, and fishes are living there as well. It's an ecosystem like the Amazonas rainforest, but it's more difficult to access this region. It's the basis of many species there. It's a region of unique beauty, and we should do everything we can to preserve this region and use the small chance we still have to preserve it.
Thank you very much for this colorful story, and let's go on with Thomas Wunderlich. Well, hello. Normally I greet people first. This time I think that would not be suitable. In the beginning, it is really overwhelming what you experienced there. Well, here. Now when we came to Bremerhaven, that was really warm around the heart. Everything was really suitable. Everything went according to the schedule. The wind went down. Then we had the sun shining. We saw the first boats and ships encountering us. That was really unique. And then in the end of the journey, you really get clear what finishes now for the vessel and for the season for the past 13 months. You may have come to Bremerhaven as often as you want. Today, really, the cold went down the back, but this in a positive way. Well, MOSAiC, I don't remember very well. It may have been in 2011 or 2012. When I came here to Bremerhaven, somebody by the Alfred-Wegener-Institut told me, we have an idea, Thomas, we want to get frozen for a year. And, well, you take this information smiling and you just go on working. But that, in fact, in 2020, you sit on a press conference and say, this has happened, we've done it. This is even more impressing, especially for me and also for the crew who have done this mission. Well, I personally have to say Corona, that is now everywhere in all the nation. In February, I had my flight ticket to Spitzbergen to take over, and where they told us, well, Norway is little by little closing the borders. You have problems in getting out of the country. And things came together and thought, well, this may not happen, because the expedition that I heard about in 2011, 2012, for the first time, seemed so important. It would not be fair to the expedition itself and also to the people in the expedition and to plan all this if this were to happen, if all the results get lost, results that are so important for the future. And the happier I was when I learned that at short term we would be able to travel on, and that infrastructure has been made to get us there, although perhaps a little bit late. But the expedition could still be done. But it was really impressive how much things have been done. not only the data we retrieved there, this expedition was really unique. You got to know people who are new for you and people who became friends, and at this level you see things can work differently. You have people from so different nations sitting together at dinner, talking to each other, supporting each other, and that made the heart warm. And like Mr. Rex already said, the ice expedition we did this year, especially during this MOSAiC mission, the Polar Stern has done many expeditions. Normally it's always the same waters to do time studies. We have gone to Greenland many times and have seen how the ice went away, became weaker and then disappeared, where 10 years ago it was still to be seen. And then on the Atlantic side, when you go towards the North Pole, it was an area where earlier you always knew, well, you have the old ice. Well, if your mission is not telling you to go there, you won't go. And now we didn't have much of a problem to go there. Just 6 days to get close to the North Pole to look for another ice float. That was really terrifying. You had practically no hindrance, no obstacles to get there. And this will be something we will see in the few years to come. This situation is really surreal. 25 hours ago, we were totally depending on ourselves on the vessel. Now we're here. And now I lost what I wanted to say. It was surreal and it was important. And now I get back to what I wanted to say. To be able to tell people that everybody has to see the ice once in their life, whether it's in the north or in the south, whether it's Greenland or Spitsbergen, you will get a different view also towards life and for your own ideas of life. And I think everybody should try to do that. Well, yes. It is, but I also get the feeling back that it's really wonderful to be back here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's go with Antiotius. Well, as the director of the Alfred-Wegener-Institut, the Helmholtz-Center of Polar and Ocean Research, in the end, I would like to say that we also have the feeling that we, as the big centers of Helmholtz Society, can do something about excellent research, and this depends on that we have been able to make long-term planning, long-term investment, well, with the help of the taxpayer to produce good infrastructure. When this morning I saw the ship coming in at sunrise, and I had this feeling, well, that's the Polarstern. It's like a piece of home, like a flying rug that makes it possible to make dreams real. And it's a ship that lives with the people on it. And the opportunity to make a mission like this depends on the people who work together and who create things. And I will not read you all the long list of thanks. I would like to thank the two captains, Stefan Schwarz and Thomas Wunderlich, and their wives also, that you have managed to do all this with all this strange situation for work to make this possible. And you made this possible worldwide for the community of people working in the Arctics. And of course, we need funds also long term. And thank you very much to the federal government. And I would also like to thank Uwe Nixdorf, the leader of the logistics. Logistics sounds so little, but it is really important, because without that we can't survive. We need these things to be able to get from one place to another alive. And I'm so proud as a director that this has worked out. Here you see a bully for snow. This is our warehouse, and you can see that all this is necessary for it, and our high idea of ocean research and polar research, there's something where we as humankind get secrets out of nature that are important for our surviving. It sounds dramatic, and you might say, what does have such a far region like the Arctic has to do with our survival? But as Markus Rex and the Minister of Research said, that if we allow the white on the Earth to disappear, what makes our climate the climate it is, then we will live on another planet, a planet that may not be good for humankind. And if you just see the figures, 10% of humankind live like 0 to 10 to 20 meters from sea level, and all these people will have to go somewhere else. We're more than 7 billion people on this planet, and this is the sort of horror scenario we have to speak about, and as scientists we do that. It is not just to make some news. I would like to thank all the journalists and all the media who have come with us. We've never been without the company of the press, so we always had journalists on board, people who were looking at us and at research, and the pictures, the movies, the news that came every day to your homes. This eye towards our planet, at times with horror, but often with love for nature, that what makes the planet something where you can live. We thank our communicators for doing that, and this sharing starts only now, because now we have all this vault of data, and the international community of the polar researchers will use this, and this is what we're striving for, that people have this data. And it is this moment that this morning made me really be happy. The Polage there was full of faces that were saying hello. We have people from Russia, from China, somebody from Bangladesh, from Brazil. In these times when it appears dangerous to travel between Berlin and Bremen, all the world was on our vessel and worked together, and we hope they all get back to their families in good health. And we have to see that we will be much happier when we do things together, instead of doing little trouble one with the other. And in MOSAiC we have been able to do that, and thank you very much. And thank you very much also that so many people are looking at us to get information about what happened in the first part of MOSAiC. This was just the first part. MOSAiC will start now, because now we will start to read the data and interpret them. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Antje Boetius. Then let's start with your questions. Let's start here in the room, but we also have people participating virtually or by email. It looks like everybody is overwhelmed, so perhaps we just start with the questions. Online we get questions from our live streams. Let's start with this. What importance does the realization of such a mammoth project have for Germany as a site of research? We need, in all areas, some bit of progress on the international level, but also for us at home. And if we in the climate research want to do our contribution, that is like this thing, one contribution to the big whole. Climate research takes many years and to get that done well, and that Germany is able to do all this is something that shows that we have been working very much on doing that in the past years, and it is proof for for us, it is proof that we've done that well. I would like to put another question with regard to the giant vault of data. I think this question goes towards that. So what to think about what will happen to this data? But let me answer to that. The data that we're bringing back have a broad spectrum of processing, from taking data back from a cloud. That's something you can't use for a climatic model yet. You have to use data to understand cloud parameters, and then to get to a better understanding of the process of how aerosols and air composition have an influence on a cloud, and what influence they have to the parameters of the cloud, what warmth comes from this cloud. This may be just an example to show it will be a long process. It will take years until we will have been able to make usable most of these data. So this will take several years more to really understand the data. I think now in the first year we will have a few individual publications about individual aspects where we can use some of the data. Here is another question to Professor Boetius. If you had been on the vessel, what would have been your personal question? What would you have liked to see? Well, much in the beginning, my work group had still some share in the project. We always wanted to have a deep sea camera in the Arctic Ocean while the ship is drifting, but then we found out that the hole in the bottom of the vessel is necessary for many other sensors, and we have then allowed that the other sensors might be more important than our deep sea questions, which we still have. But I'm also researching with regard to algae in the sea below the algae, and they can be very important as a protection zone for small ships, and they take much carbon down to the deep sea. And to get a full annual cycle and to see the going over from one term to the other about how the algae go down, I would love to see. Has the MOSAiC changed the Arctic research, and if so, how? Well, I think that the MOSAiC expedition changed pretty much what we have as ocean research. We have now many data, complex data for the many processes in the climate that take place in the Arctic. We never had that. The only thing we had was from automatic drifting swimming equipment or from Russian equipment on the ice, but that were very simple measurements if you compare them to what MOSAiC has done. I think this will have a very great influence on Arctic research, and it will, the logistic operation that we've done with the components we have done, getting an icebreaker so close to the North Pole that even in February we have been able to go so close to the North Pole. That will have an influence on other expeditions and their logistic plans, and it has become clear how accessible the Arctic has been.
Are there any other questions? So, was there anything you wanted to research which you couldn't do due to financial or time reasons? I think the greatest limit was the size of the vessel. We could have had 3 times as many scientists on board who could have been involved in very valuable research activities, but there is only one vessel, and so we had to limit the number of scientists and the number of questions to what was really most important. A lot of other researchers and scientists would have loved to be part of the expedition. It would not have failed probably due to funding, but rather to the size of the vessel itself. You are already working on the future Polarstern 2. Will you use the insight you have gained about the technical requirements of a research vessel for the second expedition? Or what other new findings will you use for the next expedition? In any event, we have been collecting and gathering insight and new findings all the time because we know in the future we will also use a ship that will be able to spend time in the Arctic also during winter time. So because the ice becomes thinner and because ice mountains form, we will use this insight for future expeditions. We have also new findings in terms of communications and telecommunications that will be very useful for future expeditions. And of course, we also plan to build bigger vessels that will be even more appropriate for such expeditions, but the shipyards will have to make their contributions and developments. And of course, we want to build environmentally more compatible vessels for the future, and that is a big challenge for the shipbuilding industry. And as a deep-sea researcher, I am particularly committed to having a vessel that has a big hole underground of the ship, so we can do research on the deep sea and deep sea matters on an even larger scale than we could before. And so we can have a much bigger insight into what happens at altitudes below the surface of the sea. Any other questions? There is a question which has been raised several times. The expedition was also about researching the polar night, and what can you tell us about the Arctic winter? We were impressed to see life in the Arctic winter. We caught fish below the ice in winter time, and there are many processes we have to understand more profoundly in the aftermath of the expedition, but the catching of fish in wintertime was something that took me by surprise. And even in wintertime, we did very precise research on cracks in the ice and mountain formation on the ice, so we were able to investigate deforming of the ice, which was also very impressive. And the core of the MOSAiC expedition was to understand the complex processes and interactions that are happening there. We were not so much focused on discovering new things, but on better understanding things we were already familiar with. And I can confirm what you are saying, that a huge ozone depletion is also developing over the Arctic, and that will be part of the interconnections that we will have to discover after the actual expedition. And so in spring 2020 we saw the greatest depletion of ozone in the Arctic region, and we were really able to document this problem on site, and we can now understand better the interconnection between the ozone layer and climate change. I can't see any further questions. I thank everybody for coming, and I hope those who have returned from the expedition will also return well to their families, and I thank the Institute for establishing a complete media center which almost resembles an expedition in itself here in this hall. And we have heard how important the international significance of the MOSAiC expedition was, and in conclusion of today's press conference we wish to show you a movie.
Sadly, in my lifetime, I think we will see what it really means to have significant ice loss in the Arctic and what those implications are.
В 2006 году в Арктический институт приехал профессор Клаус Детлов, который предложил координировать работы в Арктике на дрейфующих станциях с институтом Альфреда-Вегенера.
19 nations coming together, that's really remarkable. We really are organized under a shared vision.
Given that we were strangers, most of us were strangers to begin with, and at some point we just found a way to trust one another and to rely upon one another, and most importantly to support one another.
MOSAiC ist ja damit wirklich weltweit eine große Ausnahme. So gelingt es uns durch den gewaltigen gemeinsamen Einsatz aller Beteiligten hier und diese Expedition auch unter den ganz schwierigen Bedingungen der Corona-Pandemie fortzuführen.
To feel that, you know, the future of Arctic science is really going to be in good hands. We've got this whole new crop of young people that are coming up, and MOSAiC is helping to lift them up into this kind of new world of Arctic research as we unravel the puzzles of the changing Arctic system.